but it's really breaking long-held patterns, long-held habits.
I think that's great. I think that it's also something that, so do you lay out in your book how people can do this?
Yes, the book has 7 steps, and it starts with starting to recognize and honor our emotions, just because that needs to be an ongoing process throughout the book. And then the steps go on to realizing what created your filter. The second step is called filter fixing, and it's just getting clear on the fact that there is no objective reality. And that sounds kind of woo-woo, but when you consider that your perceptions, your senses are able to take in over 7,000 different perceptions at any given moment, and you block out most of those and you only let certain perceptions through. And that's what I call your filter, is this web of beliefs that determines what you allow through and what you don't see. So it's rewiring our filter, seeing what beliefs are in our filter and consciously removing those and placing in the beliefs that are going to serve us better. So there really is a 7-step process to the whole belief.
Well, I always joke around that I'd like to do the Eckhart Tolle, have one night of darkness and wake up enlightened and have it all figured out. But, I think what I like about that is I think it helps to have people have a plan of action. So if they will say, okay, hey, if I can do this, one thing that I do every morning is in the mirror, and to me it doesn't count if it's not in the mirror, I love you, you're beautiful. And so where I've felt inadequate or vulnerable in the past, I make sure that I look myself in the eye and say that to myself, because I think that's so important. And that I'm really curious in your other books, because I think this would be great information, people. You talk about in your bio, your self-loving kids. How do you teach kids to love themselves? And I'd like you to talk about that and how, if they love themselves, how it is going to help them. I mean, we just read that child in Ohio last week killed those kids, but he was bullied. So what is it that you've taught your kids to allow themselves to love themselves so well?
I think a lot of it for parents, and my parenting books definitely leaned in this direction, is giving them unconditional love, giving them the room to be themselves, to express themselves, making no emotion taboo, nothing that they say taboo. And that's hard for a lot of parents, a lot of adults, because for the most part it's not the way we were brought up or they were brought up. So just becoming super conscious of that this is a person who I don't own. I think of it as an extension of me, but it's really not. It's a unique whole person right here. I'm excited to see what this person is thinking, what this person wants to do, and guiding them, of course, with their health and their well-being, but really allowing them to be who they are. And then sharing the practices, the kinds of things we do in the book. We do mirror work in the book as well, and teaching them from an early age that this is what you do, because it's not just your influence. They're going to have influences in school and from friends. So there's a lot of steps to buffer them from the outside world telling them that they're wrong and they're not perfect and beautiful exactly as they are. And it always starts to trigger fear for people that their child's going to be conceited or full of themselves or too powerful. No, when you truly love yourself, there's no better way to love other people. There's no more direct correspondence than someone who's really, really loving and honoring him or herself. They're going to love and honor others to the same extent.
I think that's wonderful. I think that's something that unfortunately we don't teach our kids in school. And as you said, a lot of times we don't learn that growing up, but I think that that's so important. And I want to remind everyone, if you have a question for Lisa, you can chat the question and I'm happy to ask her, or you can call us at 919-518-9773 or Skype in at Computers 2K Voice. Now, an interesting thing about your book, which I love, how does living a juicy joy life help people become more caring for others?
Well, in that sense, that when you're not caring for yourself, you just don't have it to give. You don't have that surplus. The only way that you can ever contribute to another's happiness is when your own happiness is just filled to the brim and you have it to spare. You have it to give to others. Otherwise, giving is never really from a place of genuine, unconditional concern for that person. Giving always becomes intertwined with, I'm going to give you this, so you need to give me this, and you get those codependent, enmeshed relationships. So becoming your truest, most authentic self, people are afraid it's going to make other people not like them when they see those sides that maybe they were trying to keep under wraps. And usually with the people in your life that you're meant to be connecting with, it has the completely opposite effect. There will be some people, when you start being your truest self, there are people who don't want you to change, and they don't not love you. It's not that they're bad people. It's just human nature for us to want the people in our lives to stay the way they are and the way we expect them to be. So typically there will be some people who fall out of your life just naturally. They won't resonate with you anymore. But it opens up the space for the people who will truly resonate with you you just become magnetic for people who are in the same sort of place that you are. And everybody really wants the opportunity to be that really deeply true, authentic self, right? Especially in relationship. I mean, isn't that the relationship we're all searching for, that relationship where you can just lay it all out there and be exactly who you are and know that you are loved and adored for that person that you really truly are? That's like heaven on earth. And being around someone who's doing that, whether it's a lover or boyfriend, girlfriend or friend or family member, is what gives other people permission to do it. Even if it might make them uncomfortable a little bit initially, it opens the door for others to join you when you lead the way by example.
That's fantastic. So if you were to describe Juicy Joy to me, what is a Juicy Joy life? If you were to say, okay, here's one sentence, what's Juicy Joy? What would you say?
Juicy Joy is the ability to feel blissfully comfortable in your own skin all the time. It lets you ride the ups and downs of life with just a grace and ease that most people can't even imagine.
I love that. I think that's so important. I think sometimes in our media society, we get this false ideal that life has got to be perfect. Like if life was good, we would never have any downs. But I found that, you know what, you have to experience the other side of happiness and be sad. And if you feel that truly as much as you can feel it, then it allows you to experience the highs as well. And I don't think if we had that experience of the opposite, we wouldn't be able to fully feel the other good emotions.
That's so true. Absolutely. That's step one in the Juicy Joy training, is emotion mixing and learning to let your sadness coexist with your joy, because we're always pushing against all those unwanted emotions, and we let our circumstances decide, how we feel. So we have a circumstance that triggers, I should be mad about that. I should be angry about that. And I don't want to feel that. So we shove it down, and not expressing it, not allowing ourselves to feel it is what keeps it stuck in our energetic body, and we become magnets for more situations that are like that. Whereas just completely knowing, it's okay that I'm feeling this, I'm going to feel it 100% as much as I need to feel it. It's what allows that emotion to move through you, right? They say emotion is energy in motion. So being accepting of ourselves and our feelings just lets it flow through, and then you start having fewer and fewer of what you would call unwanted circumstances.
I think it's also important, I've talked with other guests that we have this fear, if we feel that bad emotion, then it's too painful. But we discover it's much easier on the other side once we've dealt with it, and it was much harder to hold it in and try to push it away or prevent it from happening. And so you'd agree with that?
Absolutely. Our suffering is caused from our resistance to the emotion. If we just allow the emotion, even welcome it, it eliminates at least takes the sting off of the suffering from that emotion.
So if you could describe for me, because this will help people, especially if they haven't read the book, which I know is coming out shortly, what's a Juicy Joy life look like in your career, your health, and relationship? I always like my viewers to have a concrete example, because I think that really helps them understand.
Sure. Well, in your career, if you already are loving your job, then that's fantastic. A lot of people aren't loving their jobs, so it's getting clear on why you're in a job you don't love. And we make a lot of the word tolerating in Juicy Joy training. We don't allow tolerating, because what that does is it's just a slow leak of your energy when you're tolerating anything. So if you don't love your job, but all you're doing is kind of complaining about it, and you go day after day, and man, I don't like my job, but I'm getting my paycheck, you're just, all of your chi, your prana is leaking out the back door. It's just being depleted. So it would be first looking at why you've stayed in a job that you don't love, and either making a firm commitment to either leave that job and find one you love, or find a way to make it genuinely fulfilling and enjoyable for you. And sometimes just a few little tweaks can do that for an existing position. So it's not always abandon your life for a new one. But in all the areas of our lives, whether it's relationship, our health, whatever it is, we first have to take responsibility that we created it, because we do create everything in our lives, not consciously. A lot of times it's under the waterline of our beliefs, but we do create it. And getting clear on that and seeing how we created it is so empowering, because if we created everything up until this point, we have the power to create everything going forward. So getting clear on our responsibility and what we like and don't like about our situation and what we want to change, and knowing that we can change it. And a lot of that comes with the belief work that we do all along, and the juicy feels to just show us that we really are the creators of everything that's going on.
So I want to remind everyone, if you have a question for Lisa, you can chat it and I will ask, or you can call us at 919-518-9773 or Skype in at Computers 2K Voice. I'm curious, Lisa, if, people get your book and start to do it because, you've obviously touched on the law of attraction, and whatever's going on in here is going to be reflected in your environment. But, if I look at my personal journey, used to have that victim mentality, be very negative, and I've switched that. But one thing I struggle with, because I was open to hearing it, my brother could say, hey, you might want to examine this. But I found it very challenging now to be around negative people. And I don't really attract it. I attract it on the peripheral. But I was like, how would you, if someone's doing your book and they're kind of in recovery and trying to be positive, what advice would you give to them if they had someone who's like, oh my gosh, can't believe you're doing that book, or, that just were negative, and as they're trying to move through that, do you have any thoughts that you could give them?
While someone is on the path, while they're really trying to stay clear on their own self-love and their own authenticity, I might suggest that they limit their interaction with the person. I think there's a point at which you just feel for this person. We do a lot of we call it judgment flipping, but it's kind of shadow work. It's okay, if this person is bugging me a lot, if this person's complaining and I just see them coming, I'm like, oh, I don't want to hear that complaining. Anything in your outer world that really bothers you, there's something in you still that's telling you that you need to balance. So if you're working hard on being a positive person yourself and you're attracting negative people, it's like just the universe's way of saying this is what you're trying to balance, and you can use it as a teaching thing, just to look at whatever bothered you throughout the day is giving you valuable information about what you're struggling with within yourself. So I think that limiting interaction while you're still really trying to get a handle on it is the best way to deal with that, in a loving way, in a loving, supportive way, and realizing that this person, it's not about you, their negativity, it's about them, and they're just in a position that you want to have compassion for them.
Absolutely. I think that's great advice. Now we have a question comment from Love Seeker on the chat.
Seeker.
Yes, Love Seeker. I feel bad now because I'm sad because I don't have a relationship and can't say I love myself because I'm alone. I would like to think I could find love and grow with that person. Do you have any advice for Love Seeker?
Yes, you won't. You won't find love and grow with that person if you're not loving yourself first. It's just not really possible, because what you'll attract is someone in a similar vibration, if you don't mind that word, is someone who's in a similar place that you're in, because like attracts like, and that's what you're going to find. And two people who start from a position of not loving themselves, it's very difficult to have a really connected, joyful relationship out of that. You're going to be looking to each other to make you feel good about yourselves, and that just leads down the road to codependency. And you really need to do the work on you to start feeling fabulous about you, with or without a partner. And I know you've heard that a million times. There's a juicy feel that actually starting next week is going to be free at my website that you can download. And there are a lot of juicy feels about loving yourself, but one particularly is about attracting big, big love. And the only way to attract big, big love is to fully love yourself and imagine it with excitement and not yearn for for it and be sad about the lack of it, but just to know it's there. And the more you start to feel good about yourself, the more you know it's there. And you can do the mirror work like Julie was mentioning, but really that's the first step for you. It won't be, you could find someone from the position that you're describing, but it won't be the love that you're looking for. It won't be the kind of just full-on adoration, juicy partner kind of love.
Great. And let us know, Love Seeker, if you have a follow-up.
Lisa, can you try and pull the mic a little away? Is it touching your cheek?
No, it's not touching my cheek.
Okay, try. Let's see if it, because you're in and out. It's something is wrong.
Oh no.
That sounds better.
That's better?
Yeah, that's better.
I think you moved it. I think, yeah, that sounds better.
I'm not seeing anything. Am I supposed to be seeing anything?
Yeah, you need to refresh the page.
Oh, I did that initially.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll do it again.
There we go.
I should have asked you if refreshing the page was going to.
There is that audio going in and out again.
Okay, maybe it's because of the page here.
No, it's something to do with the headsets. Can you move it a little bit so it's more in front of you?
Okay, I've turned down the audio now, and now I can see us. I didn't want to interrupt the show to tell you that, but I couldn't see us earlier.
Move the boom away from your cheek. Does it stay there?
It's farther away now. Is that better?
Yeah, that's the way
better.
It should be.
Okay.
Good. That's all right. Momentary.
We'll see if it stays like that. Okay.
Okay.
So,
I just done a radio show with it like that. I thought that would be good, but okay.
What do you teach women who are struggling with how they feel about their looks? I think this is a huge thing for lots of women, especially as we age, because, you see the plastic surgery and you say, hey, your friend should have told you to stop about 10 surgeries to go. So really is endemic to our society. So what do you say to women who are struggling with that?
Well, we do have a whole juicy feel process on that as well. But I think you have to imagine exactly who you want to be, like your best self. And you want to just go to that imaginary world as often as you can, because your best self really is your true self. And that's a hard concept for a lot of people, but the self that you can imagine is the self that you're meant to be. So if you don't like the way you look, and maybe it's a weight issue or whatever it is, you just have to imagine yourself the way you want to be and go there so often that fantasy is what propels you. And then you're led by your joy and your excitement rather than being led by guilt or all the other reasons that you might not be feeling good about yourself and not be doing anything for your weight. I don't have any specific, recommendations regarding beauty or weight other than once you get really clear on who you want to be and get so pumped up with the juice and excitement of knowing that you have the power to create that because you've created everything up until this point, then the steps just naturally appear for you. You'll just be led to the right steps to take.
I believe that. And I also think when you get comfortable with it, I mean, I'm someone who used to be like, oh, I got to lose those last 10 pounds before I can go out and do anything. And I'm like, oh, you know what? You've exhausted me, and I just got to go out and do it because, you just can't sit around and wait. Life's not going to come to your door. You got to go out there and make that happen. I think that's very important.
Right.
We have another comment here from Love Seeker. I don't want to be alone and would settle for a relationship that has potential. I believe being loved by someone would give me the confidence to love myself. Your way seems to put my life on hold until I'm done. Seems to put my life on hold.
Oh, Love Seeker, I know it seems that way. I do. I get it. But having somebody else tell you that you're lovable is not going to be the happiness that you're looking for. It's just not. It's putting too much power in another person's ability to determine your happiness. When you know that you're lovable, the world will find you that way. The world, everybody who you interact with is going to start seeing you exactly the way you see yourself. So if you see yourself right now as someone who would settle for a relationship with potential, then that's where the bar is set. There's no way you're going to really find a better relationship than that if that's the best that you can envision for yourself. I want so much more for you. I know that deep down you want so much more in a relationship than just something with potential that you're going to settle with. Don't do that, because you know what happens with women, especially when women start having sex, they bond. It's a whole biological thing. It's like the uterine contractions of orgasm are sort of similar to the uterine contractions of having a baby, and that like makes all these oxytocin bonding hormones flood your system. And I think that's why a lot of women stay in relationships that they aren't really right for them for longer than they should, because once you start that aspect of a relationship with someone, it becomes hard to extricate yourself. And I feel like unless you can shift the energy that you're in right now, you're going to attract someone who isn't going to really end up making you as happy as you could be, as happy as I'd like to see you.
Yes, and speaking from experience, don't do it. Learn to love yourself, and I'm here to say you can do it. And if you take that one step, I have no doubt that you can. So just hang in there and keep listening to the show and keep listening to Lisa. We'll get you there.
Look, there are free resources at my website, lisamccourt.com. Go get those.
We will. And we'll put that up. We'll be sure to mention that again at the end. So one step that you suggest to people is called taco filling. So tell me about that.
Taco filling is my little play on the whole enchilada. The whole enchilada is just a phrase that we hear bantered around, and none of us believe that we can have the whole enchilada, right? If something is going great in our lives, usually we'll manage to sort of sabotage something else, because there always has to be this balance of, good and bad things going on. And we have to break through that whole paradigm, that whole belief that is the only thing keeping us from having the whole enchilada. So I like the analogy of a taco because it's open-ended and we can just keep stuffing it with more and more stuff. And people usually don't like to hear this part, but whatever it is that you think you want so badly right now, it's not really important, because you're going to want something else next year or next month or maybe 10 minutes from now. So it's really, you want it to be an open shell taco so you can just take out and put in a ever revolving list of what would make your life juicy perfect for you, because it's not always going to be the same thing.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I think that's really good. We have another question on chat, and I want to remind everyone I will chat your question to Lisa. But you can also call us at 919-518-9773 or Skype in at Computers 2K Voice. Warrior Spirit says, what kind of different advice do you have for men? Does this work for men? And I like pink tacos.
Oh, I like Warrior Spirit. That's a good handle. Do you know the Way of the Superior Man? It's just made me think of that book when you said that. It's a David Data book that I like a lot for men. And of course, The Peaceful Warrior, Dan Millman. But the Juicy Joy training is for men and women, which kind of surprised me initially. I thought it was going to be pretty much a chick draw, but there are always men who show up at the workshops. And I think for men, it's especially difficult to express that true, authentic self. In a lot of ways, our society is more gentle toward women when it comes to showing their emotions, and men, it's a little bit more taboo. So excuse me. So I think that is why a lot of men are drawn to Juicy Joy training. I'm sorry, I've lost track of the question.
That's okay. That's okay. Lisa also does a radio show, folks. So she did a radio show earlier on, fed the kids, running back here. So it's been a little crazier for her. Do you have any specific advice for men? Because you said this does work on men, but it may be anything different advice that you'd have for men.
It's not different advice. It's really not. It's still love yourself exactly the way you are. Learn to listen to your emotions. And I think this is one thing that's maybe a little bit different for men, is that our emotions are Spirit's way of talking to us. And we're taught to disregard our emotions. And if we feel like, I don't want to go to that party, is that really intuition, or is that something else? If we're not feeling great about ourselves, it might just be that, I don't feel like I look good, or I don't feel like seeing people because they're not going to like me. And then you can't trust your true voice. Then your feeling isn't your intuition, because you've got all these layers on top of it. But once you strip those away and you start completely honoring and loving yourself, then whatever your emotions are become the guide to everything that you do. If you're full on happy with yourself, blissful in your own skin, and you just don't feel like going to that party, you'll know it's intuitive guidance. It's from source energy saying, don't go, you're not supposed to go. But it takes some unlayering to get to that place.
I think that's fantastic advice. I would be guilty of that because I tend to be a homebody. I'm like, oh, I want to meet someone, but then I hang out at home. Although I have to laugh, I didn't listen to my intuition. My intuition was like, just check that out. And I went to go bowling a couple weeks ago, and I get to the bowling alley, and the guy's like, I said, hey, I'm here for the meetup group. And he said, oh, you're here for the elderly. And I said, really? Really? I'm like, was I this obnoxious at 16? And he's like, no, they already had it. And I said, no, it's right here on my app. And sure enough, it was for 3 weeks from now. And I didn't listen to my intuition because I was just like, okay, you've got to force yourself to go. Because before I would have been like, oh, I don't want to go. And it was really kind of what you're talking about, feeling like, oh, I don't feel so great. So I think that's wonderful advice. Okay. So do you have any suggestions for, and this can be for men too, but for women who are just frustrated and exhausted because they want to have it all?
Well, you can have it all, first of all. And it doesn't have to be frustrating and exhausting. You want to prioritize, of course, what do I want to have first? And what can I get the most juicy, excited about first? What's really calling to me right now? And it becomes a matter of streamlining your life around your passions. So most of us, if you ask somebody, what is your passion? A few people might have a ready answer. Most of us don't have a ready answer. We're that far removed from that inner voice that drives us. So there are a lot of processes in the training that get you clear on what your passions are. And then you just, anything that comes up, it's just a quick little check-in. Is this supporting my pursuit of my passion or not? If it's not, I'm sorry, I can't go with you there. I can't do that. I'm sorry. That's not what I'm doing right now. I'm pursuing my passion. I use an example sometimes of Steve Martin in his autobiography, Born Standing Up. He says he spent 14 years doing nothing but stand-up comedy, barely making it, scraping by, considered a failure as a stand-up comic for 14 years before he got his big break. But he was just so aligned with that passion. This is what I want to do. This is what I know is going to eventually happen for me. And to have that kind of dedication is so rare, but look what it produced for him. It's like when you're really excited and juiced up about what floats your particular unique boat, you can just use that as the determining factor to get rid of all those extraneous activities that aren't supporting that.
I think that's excellent. So if someone's thinking about, they should just ask themselves that question. Does it take me, is it fill my passion or doesn't? Then that should really be the question that they should ask them, and that can help determine that.
Yeah, and most people, that's the process just to get to figure out what our passions are.
Absolutely. Do you have any advice or thoughts on that maybe if someone's like, well, I could kind of do this, I could kind of do that. Do you have any advice that could help them?
Yeah, some people say, well, let's see, right now I kind of like playing tennis every other Thursday, so maybe tennis is my passion. If your passion were in your life already, you'd know it, right? It's not just a matter of looking at the things in your life and picking one that you kind of like. So to find time to explore your passion, you have to cut away some of the fat. And that's one of the steps that we do, is look at what we give our time, our energy, our attention to, realizing how precious our time and our attention is. What are we giving it to that really is not serving our evolving selves, is not serving our authenticity, is not serving our passion, and being kind of brutal and carving some things out of our lives. And then using that freed up time to say, I'm just going to follow any little thread that catches my eye this week. If I hear an ad on the radio for a concert or a group that normally I wouldn't even pay attention to because I'm just so habituated, that's not me. But if it sounds a little bit intriguing, I'm going to go. I'm just going to start exploring different things. And then, your passion finds you. Once you open up to it, the universe will send your passion to you.
I think that's because I found it. It's this. And again, wasn't part of the plan, and I just listened to what someone said to me, but I was like, okay, this is it. finally I'm like, it took you long enough to get here, but this is what I get excited finding guests. I mean, I'm up till all hours of the night after this because it fills me. And when someone says, oh my gosh, I listened to that person and it changed my life, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Right. But, I think one thing what I'm so excited that I want people to hear what you just said, to think outside that box, because, I call us the walking wounded, because sometimes we get so set in that we can't even see anything else, or, oh, this is the way it has to be, and it doesn't. Absolutely. But you have to take that first step. No one else, you can be the best person they've ever seen, but unless they make that first step, it won't happen. Now we've got another question for you here from OMG. I kind of see Love Seeker's point. I battle myself, and I'm also alone, and I want love now, not after a workshop or reading a book, yet I know I have more to grow. So comment, I guess. Do you have any thoughts to that?
Can you find love in ways that don't involve romance? Can you find love in a friendship? Can you try to see the workshop or book not as a grueling thing that you have to get through in order to get the prize, which is love, but as an exciting adventure? And I agree. I've been in workshops and I've read books that are grueling and really not fun to go through. I promise you, Juicy Joy is a fun journey. We have a great time. I'd love for you to come into Club Naked. This is the new program I'm starting in April, which is a community for men and women who want to be their most authentic selves. And it's just every week it's different little tools for finding that, and it doesn't intrude on your life. It's very easy to fit into your life. It's just $10 a month, cheaper than your Starbucks bill. So, I mean, that's my recommendation, is just find a program, something that could be exciting for you and fun for you, and maybe you could find friends within that program, maybe gentlemen friends, who knows, who are on the same path with you, and you could, sort of go on that journey together, and who knows what kind of real relationship could come from that. I think we are human tribal creatures.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of being a human being, is we want that connection, we crave that connection, but you want it to be the right kind, with the right energy behind it. And really connecting with you first will do that for you.
I think that's excellent. It's going to lead in a question I have, because they continue, and I think you answered it. Do I have to be alone until I find self-love? Which, no, you're like, get out there and meet people, which I would agree with. They said, what happens if I don't ever find it? My parents didn't love each other, but they made me. I'm not happy, but I help a lot of people. Do you have any thoughts on that?
And is that what you want for yourself? Do you want what you saw your parents have? My guess is that you want something else. And, some people are afraid to say, I want, because it's a deserving issue. But in Juicy Joy Training, we do this whole little, we wiggle our hips when we say I want. We learn to say those two words with just such delicious anticipation and certainty that the magic behind those two words, I want, is infallible. When you are wanting from the right energetic place, you're going to have that. So want that for yourself. Want big love. Want love that is so much more than what you saw your parents experience. And if you let yourself want it and you tap into that and you start letting that juice go through you, it changes your body chemistry. It changes the way you carry yourself and the way you talk and the way you stir your coffee. I don't know. It's just you have to let yourself want something really big before it can happen for you.
I think that's excellent advice. And Lisa, I'm going to ask you, the first 10 minutes, apparently the audio had issues. So I just there are a couple things that you have that I think are really important. If we just go over that again, what is radical authenticity, and why do you say it's the key to a happy and loving, fulfilling life?
I think what I was saying about that is that authenticity and self-love have become such soft words that we don't even pay attention to them anymore. They sound cliche. Everybody thinks they're authentic, thinks they're self-loving, or it just sounds like something that, what's that going to do? But radical authenticity is just a whole breaking through to a new level of being who you are. And it's what we all crave deep down. What we all want is the opportunity to just shed all those layers that we've accumulated, that all those beliefs that have told us that it's not okay to be who you really are inside. You need to put your best face forward, and you need to make sure, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. There are a thousand sayings and cliches around it that we've heard all our lives that make us think, oh no, I better not let anyone see what's really going on inside me. And we become so habituated to that we ourselves lose touch with what's really going on inside us. So radical authenticity is peeling away all those layers and getting to that inner voice and trusting it and believing in it.
Yeah, I think that that's so true. What, this kind of OMG brought this up. What advice would you have for parents going through divorce?
Oh, I have a lot to say about that. I feel that, again, I hate to bash society. I'm really not against society. I love the world and love all the aspects of it. But our society has made divorce such an ugly thing that so many people, I have views about marriage in general, but when we make a promise to love someone forever, right? And then usually when a marriage is starting to go south, there's one person who recognizes that fact before the other one. And then this person becomes the villain, the one who wants to back out of the promise, the one who made a promise and now doesn't really want to keep it. But since society attacks the villain, hates the villain, penalizes the villain, we don't want to be in that position, so we have to build a case against the other person because if we can prove that it's so horrible to be married to this person, then maybe we get to be the victim instead of the villain. So you start building a case against someone. And always in life, we see whatever we're looking to find. So when you're looking to find the very worst traits in your spouse, it's not hard to build a case against anyone. So for children to witness their parents going through this dance of, I want out of the marriage, but I want to make you the bad guy. And then, of course, the one who didn't want out of the marriage gets easy access to the victim spot unless the other person's case starts, having enough weight that they might be the villain. And it just creates this horrible dance that doesn't have to be that way. Divorce can be a really organic, beautiful, natural process when people just acknowledge the fact that we're all always evolving and growing, and this is natural and good and how it should be. And what are the odds, really, that two people are going to evolve and grow at exactly the same pace, at exactly the same time, so that that romantic connection can stay alive and valid? And I do think that it's possible to fall in love early in life and be in love with that person right up until your 80s, 90s, and beyond. I believe it's entirely possible. I don't think it's common. I think it's fairly rare, and I think that this whole stigma we have about divorce keeps a lot of people in unhappy relationships and causes children to suffer needlessly. Children just don't want their parents to hate each other. They don't care if you're separated, divorced, whatever you're being. They just want to see that the two most important people in their lives are loving and respectful toward one another. And it's possible to have a loving and respectful divorce. I have one. My ex is one of my best friends in the universe, and we spend a lot of time together with our kids, and there was never a point where we hated one another.
Yeah, I think that that's so true. I know that if I were to have gotten married in my 20s, I'd be divorced for sure because I'm such a completely different person. Right? And I would have, at that time in my life, would have needed and wanted a relationship now that I'd be like, you got to be kidding me. I wouldn't tolerate it now, but back then I would have done that. And that leads me to another question that you talk about in your book about judgment flipping. So I'd like you to talk about that and what that is. And so if I'm judging someone else, what's it really saying about me?
Well, I refer to shadow work in the book, which is this brilliant whole psychological methodology invented by Carl Jung. And there are misunderstandings, I think, about shadow work because typically you would say what you see in someone else, it really means that you're that. But it goes deeper than that. You can't say, oh, I think that person's stupid, so I must be stupid. What it would really mean is that you're uncomfortable with the part of you that doesn't know everything. And you could be brilliant. You could be a rocket scientist. But if you still aren't comfortable with the fact that you don't know everything, you're going to be judging other people for being stupid. And it's always a sign that there is something we need to balance within ourselves because we all have all of it in us, right? Every human trait, we all have aspects of every human trait within us. So if we're severely judging someone else, and it could be something like, rudeness. I just hate rudeness. I run into rude people everywhere I go, on the road, in the grocery store, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a rude person. It could be the universe trying to say, hey, you need to balance this out. What would be the flip? How could we judgment flip rudeness? What would be the positive way to look at it? Well, it's somebody who gets their needs met in the world, who's able to express themselves in such a way that their needs are known and they get their needs met. So if you're encountering a lot of rudeness and you find a lot of resistance to it, it might be the universe's way of telling you that you're not being forthright and forthcoming about your own needs and expressing them in a way that gets them met. And it doesn't mean go be rude. It just means balance that in yourself.
I love that. That's excellent. I think that's the best explanation I've heard on that. So
thank you.
Thank you for that. Now, a couple questions that I always like to ask our guest, for instance, love seeker here struggling, people are struggling not only in relationships, but jobs, or maybe they're out of work or going through divorce or whatever it is. What advice would you give to someone who's struggling and maybe like, okay, I'd love this juicy joy life, but I'm not there yet? What would you say to them?
I would say start right where you are. We don't push against anything in Juicy Joy training. So the unwanted circumstances of your life are valuable gifts. You can get really clear on them, examine them, go through some exercises to really see what these unwanted circumstances are, how they got here, how you created them, because you did. You created everything. And what they're telling you about yourself, what they're telling you about what you want, because like you mentioned earlier, Julie, contrast is our friend. Contrast shows us what we're not liking so that we can get a really clear picture on what it is that we do want and get some juicy energy going around what we do want. So learning to appreciate your unwanted circumstances allows you to turn them into springboards. And that's what we do in Juicy Joy training. We actually honor them. We thank them for everything they've taught us. We make sure that they have taught us something first. We find out what the message is in them. And then that's what allows them to kind of flow out of your life, the unwanted circumstances, and opens up the space for the circumstances that you do want to attract. But it's definitely getting real about here's what's here, here's how I made it, here's probably why I made it, because I needed to figure out this, or this, and learn this. And now that I see on the horizon what it is that I'm moving toward, here are all the steps that I can take to get me there.
Excellent. I love that. Now we have a question here on chat from Cheese Goddess. How can I improve my diet? What are a few things I can do now to love myself?
Cheese Goddess, I love it. Oh my goodness. I am so not a diet expert. I'm going to just defer here to one of my Hay House friends, Caroline Sutherland, and I'm on her diet right now, and I have embarked on it many times, I will admit to you, and it doesn't always stick for me, or actually hasn't ever stuck for me before. But according to Caroline, for most people to have the best energy and the best clarity of thought, which is something that I struggle with. I'm a daydreamer. I'm ADD. I'm not always so clear in my thinking. And just the most joyful diet. And she's a medical intensive. She's very renowned. She's Louise Hay's personal dietitian. She, has made Louise the healthy, glorious creature that she is. She says no gluten, no dairy, no sugar. And it sounds like, oh, that's just 3 things. It's in a lot of stuff, okay? So Cheese Goddess, it sounds like that's going to be a toughie, the no dairy. But I do find that when I follow her plan, my energy skyrockets. I think more clearly. For some reason, those are just foods that tend to have a fogging over effect for us. And that's, none of that is my own personal advice other than having done this through Caroline's plan. So it was a 2-part question, right?
Yes.
You said, how should I improve my diet? And what was the other one?
What are a few things I can do now to love myself?
Oh, okay. Start listening to your emotions, because that's something that most of us, we kind of just don't. We look to our brain to tell us, what to do next instead of our emotions. And I like to give my students just an easy little exercise of all day, like set the intention when you wake up in the morning. I'm going to pay attention to my emotions today. I'm going to honor them and I'm going to work with them. And then every time you look at a clock, I want you to have a goal of checking in once an hour, but that might not happen because you might not remember. But every time you look at a clock, let that be your trigger to really stop and say, what am I feeling right now? Whatever it is, you might be a little frustrated, angry, you might be joyful. Anytime you're having happy emotions, celebrate that. Be like really excited that you're having those happy emotions, because the more you pay attention to that and honor that, the more you'll attract more happy emotions. And if you're having any kind of a negative emotion, just completely honor that too. Let it in and notice how the tendency is usually to push it away or not want to acknowledge it, not want to think about it. Let it in. Let it give you whatever the message is supposed to be. And then after you explore that for a minute, say, okay, based on what I've just discovered, what is it that I would like to be feeling? And let your imagination go to what you'd really like to be feeling in this moment. And let your imagination go there to the extent that you start to feel it. You start to feel that chemistry in your body. And then just tuning into that feeling will open up the door to sometimes really easy steps to take that'll help you feel those things. It'll open up the possibilities to take you in the right direction toward having the feelings that you want to have. Sometimes it's as simple as, I'm feeling kind of boxed in and pressured, and maybe if I open the window, and you open the window and a fresh breeze comes in and you start feeling the serenity that you were hoping to feel.
All right, I think that's great. And then this kind of answers it, but I still like to ask this because you have such great advice, and you might have another tool or trick up your sleeve. I'm all about getting off the couch in this show. I mean, I want people to watch it, but I want them to take one step. So if you were to say, okay, one step that people can take right after this broadcast, before they go to bed, when they wake up, to reawaken their brilliance, what would you say?
One step tonight before they go to bed. I would say, as you're going off to bed, just really, I mean, a lot of people would say make a gratitude list. You can make a gratitude list. That always helps to get you in the right spot. But I would say just let yourself fantasize, let yourself daydream like you maybe don't often do or haven't done since you were a kid. Imagine when you were 5 and you could pretend whoever you wanted to be. You could just try on that persona and feel it. You could be a doctor or an explorer or, crocodile hunter, whatever your imagination led you to, and you would pretend it so vividly that you would feel your body chemistry change in alignment with that. Just let yourself do that as you go off to sleep. The best fantasy you could create for yourself. And some of us do this all the time naturally, but for a lot of people, this is kind of groundbreaking advice. So.
No, that's great. Now, Lisa, if people want to get the book or find out more information, or if you have any upcoming workshops, tell us all about that and how they can find out.
Oh, great. Okay. The book, actually, I heard that it shipped early, and you probably can get it now in a lot of stores. It was supposed to release on March 27th, but I think now it's actually available a little bit early. I'm going to do a big launch on it on the 27th. I have a big South Florida tour, actually all over Florida tour, if anyone's going to be down here. I have a Juicy You conference in South Florida that you could get information for that at mindbodysoulevents.net. If you want to come down for the conference, we'd love to have you. And especially watch for Club Naked. It's going to launch April 1st. I think you can already sign up for it on my site, but it's going to be spectacular. It's going to be fun, easy to fit into your life, a lot of like on-the-go podcasts, audio downloads, some videos, live webinars with the top self-dev rock stars in the industry where you can interact with them the way the callers are kind of interacting now. You can write in or call in. So Club Naked is just $10 a month, and it's a great investment in you just staying focused on your authenticity and your self-love, helping to juice up your life.
And can you give us your website again?
Yes, easiest to remember is juicyjoy.com.
Juicyjoy.com, and we'll be sure to put that up. And I want to remind everyone that if you're in the Triangle area, we've got our next Thrive event coming up. So if you're stressed out, worrying about the big things, the little things, or if you're feeling overwhelmed, we've got another Body, Mind, Spirit panel coming up on March 27th. And if you go to reawakenyourbrilliance.com, you can find the link, find out all the information. We switched venues, so we have limited seating. So sign up, and the early bird special ends on the 18th. We'd love to see you there to help you reduce your stress. And Lisa, we want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we are all filled with more juicy joy because of you.
Oh, thank you so much, Julie. It was great talking to you.
All right, everyone. We'll see you here next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Have a great one. Bye now.
Bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Sundays, 9 a.m. to noon. Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Mondays, 8 to 9 p.m. Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, Wednesdays, 8 to 9 p.m. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com.